The observation deck of the Galactic Academy's Xenobiology wing had never been so crowded. Cadets from 17 different species pressed against the reinforced viewing glass, their various appendages, tendrils, and sensory organs all focused on the containment arena below. Security Chief Varnock stood at the center, his chitinous plates rattling with barely suppressed anxiety. "This is madness," hissed Cadet Jaren, her scales shifting to the deep purple of fear. "Those are Kragathi cubs. Even younglings of that species have killed trained warriors." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled crowd. Everyone knew the Kragathi, apex predators from a death world classified as Class 9 hazardous. Adults stood 3 meters tall, possessed claws that could shred starship hulls, and had never, in the 14,000 years since first contact, been domesticated, trained, or even approached without severe casualties, and there were 5 cubs in that arena. The cubs prowled the enclosed space, their sleek midnight black forms rippling with muscle beneath skin that seemed to absorb light itself. Each was already the size of a full-grown Terran lion, though they wouldn't reach full maturity for another 2 cycles. Their eyes, 6 per cub, arranged in pairs across their elongated skulls, glowed with bioluminescent amber, tracking every movement with predatory precision. "Where is the handler?" demanded Cadet Joreth, his translator barely managing to convey his species' characteristic aggression. Surely they wouldn't send someone in there without a full tactical team. As if in answer, the arena's entrance dilated. A single figure stepped through. Human. The word whispered through the crowd like electricity. Humans had only joined the galactic community 3 standard years ago, and their reputation was complicated. They came from Terra, a Class 7 death world, not quite as lethal as Kragathos, but close enough to earn respect. They had survived by being persistence hunters, pack coordinators, and, most unnervingly, by domesticating some of their planet's most dangerous predators. But this was different. This was a Kragathi. The human was small by galactic standards, barely 1.7 meters tall, with the typical primate build of her species. She wore the simple gray uniform of an academy instructor, her dark hair pulled back in a practical tail. Her designation patch read, Lyra Chen, Xenobiology Specialist, Behavioral Sciences. She carried no weapons, no armor, no protective field generators, just a small pouch at her belt and an expression of absolute calm. "Ancestors preserve us," breathed Jaren. "She's going to be slaughtered." The cubs noticed her immediately. 5 pairs of amber eyes locked onto the new presence. The lead cub, larger than its siblings with a distinctive scar across its shoulder ridge, rose from its haunches. Its name was Rock, according to the briefing files, taken from a Kragathi word that meant firstborn or dominant one. Rock's lips peeled back, revealing rows of crystalline teeth designed to crack through bone and composite armor alike. A low rumble emanated from its chest, not quite a growl, but a sound that made every instinct scream danger. The human, Lyra, stopped walking. She stood perhaps 10 meters from the cubs, her posture relaxed, almost casual. She didn't reach for any weapon, didn't activate any defense. She simply waited. The cubs began to circle. "Someone stop this." Cadet Joreth pounded on the glass. "Contact the Academy administrators." "This is quiet." Security Chief Varnock's voice cut through the panic. His main eyes never left the arena. "Watch." Rock moved first, dropping into a hunting crouch. Its siblings fanned out, instinctively executing a pack tactic that had evolved over millions of years. The encirclement was textbook predatory behavior. Cut off escape routes, attack from multiple angles, overwhelm the prey. Lyra's right hand moved, not quickly, not aggressively. She simply raised it, palm facing outward, fingers spread. The gesture was economical, precise, and carried an indefinable quality of authority, and Rock stopped. The massive cub froze mid-stalk, its entire body going still. Those 6 amber eyes fixed on the human's hand, then traveled to her face. For a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and human regarded each other across the space. Then Rock sat. The movement was almost comical. This killing machine, this apex predator that had never been tamed, lowering its haunches to the floor with the obedience of a trained companion animal. "Impossible," whispered someone in the observation deck. The other 4 cubs hesitated. confused by their leader's submission. They looked to Rock, then back to the strange creature that had commanded without speaking, without showing fear, without displaying any of the behaviors that should trigger either flight or fight. Lyra took 3 slow steps forward. Her hand remained raised, but her other hand moved to the pouch at her belt. She withdrew something. Enhanced scanners in the observation deck identified it as simple dried meat, protein-rich and prepared according to Kragathi nutritional requirements. She tossed it gently toward Rock. The cub caught it in midair with reflexes too fast for most species to track. It consumed the treat in one bite, then, and this was what made several cadets gasp aloud, it made a sound. A deep thrumming vocalization that Kragathi researchers had identified as a contentment expression, usually only heard between mother and offspring. Lyra lowered her hand and walked forward. The other cubs watched, transfixed, as she approached Rock. She stopped within striking distance, close enough that one swipe of those claws could end her life before any rescue could be mounted. Instead, she extended her hand and touched the scar on Rock's shoulder. The cub leaned into the touch. One by one, the other cubs approached. They surrounded the human, their massive forms dwarfing her, their potential for violence a constant threat. But Lyra showed no fear. She produced more treats, distributing them with the practiced ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. She touched each cub, her hands gentle but confident, and each responded with that same thrumming sound. Finally, Lyra sat down cross-legged on the arena floor. All 5 cubs settled around her, Rock positioning himself at her feet, the others forming a protective semicircle. To any observer, it looked like an ancient pack structure, except the alpha wasn't the largest predator. It was the small human who had walked in without fear. In the observation deck, Security Chief Varnock turned to address the stunned cadets. "This," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a lesson learned, "is why humans are now employed in every major xenobiology department across the galactic community. They call it animal behavior expertise. We call it something their planet apparently specializes in, the impossible." Cadet Jaren's scales had shifted to a confused orange. But it's how. Kragathi have never, because humans spent 10,000 years on a death world learning to read body language, Project Calm Authority, and form bonds with creatures that should have eaten them, Varnock interrupted. They turned wolves into companions, raptors into hunters, and even predatory felines into household pets. To them, this, he gestured at the arena where Lyra now sat peacefully among living weapons, is just another Tuesday. Below, Lyra stood. The cub stood with her. She raised her hand again, made a different gesture, a downward motion, and all 5 cubs lay down. Their bodies relaxed, their eyes half closed in contentment. She walked toward the exit, and Rock, the lead cub, the one that researchers had deemed too aggressive for any training program, followed her for 3 steps before stopping at another hand signal. It sat again, watching its human with something that looked remarkably like devotion. As the arena door closed behind Lyra, she glanced up at the observation deck and offered a small, knowing smile. The message was clear. Humans had spent millennia earning the right to walk among predators. The galaxy was only just beginning to understand what that truly meant.